Hello everyone, welcome back to Helldivers 2. The last time I did a Warbond ranking, we had 5 options to choose from outside of Helldivers Mobilize. Now, we've got 10. Add to that the number of items that have been buffed, nerfed, or generally overhauled, and that leaves us with a lot to talk about. Before we get to that, big shout out to Xeno Gaming, the mad genius who turned the thumbnail you just clicked on from this into what it is now. You'll find a link to his channel through the card in the corner and in the description. Several of his last Helldivers 2 videos were bangers. His content is well worth that subscribe button. Currently, this video is part 1 of 3, but I'll be adding videos as future Warbonds get released. Last time I talked about the highs and lows of each and provided a general ranking. This time we're going a bit more mathematical. We're looking at 4 items from each Warbond and their booster. Armor passive is being used as a fill-in in cases where there was no booster, or no 4th item, or simply no 4th item that scored higher than the armor passive in question. From there, each item was graded on a scale of 1 to 10. At the end of which, the totals for each Warbond were tallied, and the Warbond ranking constructed. We're going in release order, starting with the 10-page beast that we all get along with our capes, Helldivers Mobilize. Because of the massive size of this Warbond compared to the others, and the fact that it's default, it's only getting an honorary ranking and will not be part of the official rank. Many thanks to Dragon Ruse for that suggestion. Helldivers Mobilize is also the only Warbond for which the grading format is going to be altered. Because several of the items with the best staying power here are boosters, we're looking at 2 weapons and 3 boosters. Likewise, armor passives are taking a pass here since so many of them can be acquired elsewhere. As we get into this, please keep in mind that all rankings are subjective. There are certain weapons everyone will agree on, and others people will die on hills defending, and any other variation of not being able to please everyone. These rankings are subjective based largely on my playstyle, preferences, what I see other divers using, and what I hear from other divers while talking shop. And like last time, my partners in crime provided their own input, prompting several alterations. On top of that, a commenter named Major4 recently posted a remarkably thorough overview of all the Warbonds on my old Warbond ranking video. His takes are deserving of their own video. So, until he has one for himself, I've asked him to repost his thoughts here and on the subsequent videos. You'll find his comments pinned below at some point in the near future. Now, let's talk Helldivers Mobilize. First off, we're looking at the Breaker Shotgun. Is it good? Yes. In fact, it's a bit of a beast when you first unlock it. But it's not long until you can replace it with something better. Used to be that something would be the Breaker Incendiary. And now there are even more options to choose from. For that reason, the Breaker gets a 6. Next, we're looking at the one-time king of energy weapons, the Scorcher. The last weapon available at the very end of Helldivers Mobilize. Time was, enemies would die from fear before the projectile could even reach them. Likewise, Helldivers would die if they shot the cockroach by their feet. With a whisper-quiet sound profile, speedy single-shot ROF, a full auto option, great damage, and splash damage, the Scorcher is a beast. Its one handicap, the ammo capacity. Bring your spare mags for this one, because you're going to need them. For that reason, the Scorcher gets a 9. Pair it with the Siege Ready armor passive, and enjoy. Now, let's talk about some of the boosters. Hellpod Space Optimization is the first booster any of us can unlock, and it's got a ton of staying power. If you're in a full squad, odds are someone is carrying this bad boy. And when you consistently pop out of your Hellpod fully stocked on stims, ammo, and grenades, you'll understand why this booster is a 10. Next, we're looking at Vitality Enhancement, a booster which has recently become my go-to for solos and full squad missions alike. More survivability equals more success. Plain and simple. That said, unless you're running certain kits which require the Vitality Enhancement to survive, it's often one of the first boosters to be swapped out for something else. Vitality Enhancement nets a score of 8. The last item we're looking at for Helldivers Mobilize is the Stamina Enhancement Booster. Given the fact that stamina is the life's blood of Helldivers, right behind liberty and democracy of course, I don't think any players would dispute this booster's utility. More stamina equals more running equals less getting caught by those pesky enemies that want to see what your insides look like. Like Vitality Enhancement, I've seen this one drop off the loadout screen a fair amount, though it seems to have a bit more staying power than the former. For that reason, Stamina Enhancement gets a 9. This gives Helldivers Mobilize an honorary score of 42, with honorable mention going to many of its other items, specifically the Trailblazer Scout Armor, the Democracy Protects passive, the Muscle Enhancement Booster, and begrudgingly, the Diligence Counter Sniper Marksman Rifle. God, I hate that gun. Alright, next up, the Steeled Veterans Warbond, home of the Incendiary Breaker, once the undisputed Lord of Shotguns and the bane of a certain Linguistxx playtime. Horde of enemies in front of you? No problem. The Incendiary Breaker spits fire and hate with alarming speed. And while it's still a solid choice for your go-to, it's taken some hits since the early days of Helldivers 2. Having never been a big lover of this weapon, based mainly on my not liking to unintentionally TK my squad and the amount of times I've been intentionally TK'd with it, I turned to the man, the myth, the legend, Darkside01, who it turns out killed me with that weapon more times than I had tears to shed. His take? The Incendiary Breaker is amazing, but the Cookout's better. 7. Enough said. Now we'll look at our first non-firearm weapon for this list, the Incendiary Grenade. While they were good before, they've been made even better since. While impact grenades are very popular owing to their ability to be thrown further without mid-air detonation, timed grenades pack a bit more punch. Bug Breach? Easy. Horde of Voteless? Not for long. Battlefield S'mores? Got you covered. These fiery bastards are solid. Want to run them till your retirement? Go for it. The Incendiary Grenade gets an 8. Back to firearms. It's time for the Jar 5 Dominator. While this was never a personal favorite of mine, it's got a lot of players behind it. Want to be able to drop most non-heavy enemies in the blink of an eye? The Dominator's on the job. Provided you can aim, which I can't, so no thank you. That said, the Dominator's getting an 8. Next in line, the Senator Pistol. Want to be a lawman for Super Earth? 6-shooter and all? No problem. This sucker packs a wallop and makes a good counterbalance to a spray and pray primary that lacks stopping power. And by stopping power, I mean the ability to drop a Hulk at high noon with a few well-placed shots. The Senator is well deserving of its 9. Where Steeled Veterans falls down is in its booster. Flexible reinforcement budget only has use if you've totally borked your mission and happen to need a quicker timer on additional reinforcements. It may have limited utility for newer players who are still finding their footing, but its use quickly begins to fall off after that. Flexible reinforcement is a 1. Buy it if you have nothing else you need or when your closet completionist kicks in. Steeled Veterans nets a total score of 33, making it a strong contender for top Warbond. You like fire? You like killing stuff? Steeled Veterans is going to be worth your time. Our next Warbond is Cutting Edge. The debate over the best Warbond comeback rages between this and Polar Patriots. With an essentially pointless booster and a situational armor passive, this Warbond looks like it should be a pass. But let's take a closer look. The Sickle is a fun gun, and as ARs go, it's not bad. That said, most ARs in Helldivers 2 aren't great. The Sickle is the lowest of the good ARs. Potentially infinite ammo, pinpoint accuracy, who doesn't like that? But its AP and stopping power are lacking. Is it a good choice for primary? Absolutely. But there are better options. Several, in fact. For that reason, the Sickle's going to get a 5. Now, the Punisher Plasma is a surprisingly versatile shotgun, though its arc and AoE damage make it more like a short, portable mortar or grenade launcher. Energy splash damage does pretty well across the board, and if you favor a weapon with a solid arc to your shot, the Punisher Plasma is going to be for you. 7. The next item was probably the single biggest point of contention with my previous ranking, the Stun Grenade. I called it niche. Was it good? Absolutely. But was it key? No. Then came the deluge of comments singing its praises. So much so that I resolved to run stun grenades and stun grenades alone for several weeks in an effort to see if I could figure out what everyone else was apparently seeing with it. I didn't. I'd rather kill enemies than just slow them down. And using them to save divers that are in trouble often stunned the diver I was trying to save, resulting in death anyway. Add to that the bump that incendiary grenades have received, and the addition of gas grenades, and the utility that stun grenades once had has slipped a bit. But they still pop up pretty often in regular play. I'm giving these an 8, niche though they may be. The Blitzer was a bit of a sleeper hit. One that I found out through comments last time seemed to function better for a good amount of players when hip-fired rather than aiming. With solid stopping power and the ability to hit multiple targets, and the fact that it looks frickin' cool, its only detracting factor is its limited range. While it's not a favorite of mine, I recognize its merits, so the Blitzer gets an 8. As I mentioned, Cutting Edge's booster was garbage, so instead of looking at localized confusion, we'll be looking at the armor passive Electrical Conduit, which, in all honesty, sounds better than it is. Does it minimize electrical damage to the point of almost nothing? Yes. Which means, yes, it can absolutely save your life. That said, electrical damage isn't exactly rampant in Helldivers 2. And while we're seeing a bit more of it now than we used to with the Tesla Towers on Illuminate missions, most players still opt for something more versatile once they know the lay of the land. I'm giving this a 3. It works, but if it was removed from the game, it wouldn't change much for the bulk of the player base. With that, Cutting Edge pulls a score of 31, which is honestly higher than I was expecting it to when I did the cursory ranking of where I thought the Warbonds would fall. While I personally wouldn't say there are a lot of must-haves here, there's definitely a lot of good to be had if you choose this one. So, before we bring an end to this installment, let's take a look at the standings thus far. With an honorary 42 points, we've got Helldivers Mobilize. With 33 points, we've got Steeled Veterans. And with 31 points, we've got Cutting Edge. And that's it for now, folks. The next installment should drop in a couple days. Until then, thanks for watching.